¿Cómo se sienten?
Oh my god, so happy and relieved. It's
so
over.
Excited. Yeah. Glad. So glad it's over. Yes. We have houses now.
Welcome back. Today we're in Zebulon and we're not here to show you this house. We're actually here to share with you a very cool story. As you may or may not know, Hispanic Heritage Month is right around the corner, and we felt that this closing that we just had is worthy of sharing with you because we're very proud of these twins, young Generation Z Hispanic nurses that bought at the same time in the same community. They're essentially neighbors. Very cool story. Before we dive into the story, I would like to thank the realtor, Omar Rodriguez from the North Group, for allowing us the opportunity to work with these sisters. I want to also thank my team for working with them and making sure that we closed on time, that they had the right communication, that everything went flawlessly. They're very happy, but we want to share with you their story, being that they're first generation Hispanic Latinas growing up here in North Carolina. Very similar to my story, except that I was born and raised in New York, but I'm also a first generation Hispanic Latino here in the US, maybe like many of you watching us. So without more delay, let's go inside, meet with Andrea and Celeste. Follow me. All right guys, so like I mentioned, we have two special guests. We have Andrea and Celeste. Andrea and Celeste, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I think that your story is worthy of being highlighted, especially with Hispanic heritage. So thanks so much for doing this. Let's start with the beginning. So you're first generation, born in the US, just like me. My parents, my mom's Colombian, my dad's Salvadorian. I was born in New York. Where are you ladies from? Where is your family from?
So we were born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina. We're twins. And my parents are both from Honduras, so.
Okay, and probably a common question that you get, who was born first?
Andrea. I was born first. I'm
born
2
first.
minutes older than her.
Okay, so you're the oldest.
Yeah, I'm the oldest.
Technically, all right.
Technically.
Do you both speak Spanish?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
How has growing up as a Hispanic, first generation in North Carolina, bilingual, how was that?
Well, I mean, it wasn't easy.
No.
My mom came here like 20 plus years ago, and when she first got here, my dad still doesn't know how to speak English. My mom was the one who started learning how to speak English, and she would learn by watching novellas like in English, and then she's a housekeeper and she still is. So they would say words like mop and broom, and that's kind of how she would know, and that's how she taught us. And she taught us before we went to school, so that we could understand what was going on. And then Spanish was our
First language. Yeah, Spanish is our first language. Our dad has only ever spoken Spanish, and so that's how we would communicate with him at home. And then, like she was saying, my mom became fluent on her own, and she taught us before we even went to school. But when we were in school, my sister and I both got placed in ESL because we had put on the form that Spanish was our primary language, and so
I was in ESL too. I mean, I know how that was.
I was so, let me tell you, ESL was so much fun for me because I would just get candy for, knowing how to speak English. And so when they told me that I was not going to be in ESL anymore, I didn't understand. So I started crying.
Yeah.
It was so bad. They had to console me in the hallway.
It was maybe like a week of ESL, and then they were like, yeah, you guys are too fluent for this, and they put us back in the regular classes. But yes, that is essentially how we picked up on both languages.
How important was being bilingual in school? Did you feel that gave you an advantage or not? Something like that. At least when I was growing up, I felt that it wasn't a good thing. I felt like I didn't want to speak Spanish. I kind of felt like I wanted to be more involved with the American culture to fit in more. But then as I grew out of school, I felt that it was definitely an advantage. So I don't know, maybe that's why kids don't want to speak Spanish, growing up.
I don't think that it gave us an advantage in any way. Maybe when there were new students who only spoke Spanish, the teachers knew we spoke Spanish, and so they were like, oh, can you help them? Can you orient them? Okay, that would be
But that wasn't an advantage to us.
In any way, no.
Okay.
I honestly don't even really feel like I used Spanish at all in school. One thing I will say is, I feel like now there's this there's more of a persistent rhetoric about like being Hispanic in like an American high school. A lot of the times, this is gonna sound so crazy, but if you're Hispanic, you're gonna know what I mean. If you're a Hispanic girl, you're gonna know what I mean. I honestly didn't feel like pretty in high school because if you look at the role models of like what we're supposed to look like, what the pretty girls look like or the popular girls look like in my high school, we're like fair-skinned, blonde hair, light eyes, like the cheerleader kind of thing. So that was not me.
Obviously, and it was never gonna be.
And it was never gonna be me. So I knew that was like an unattainable beauty standard for myself, right? So I didn't feel like there were people who represented me, what I looked like.
Where we came from.
Nothing.
And it's probably something that kids are feeling right now growing up, right?
Right.
Now, although we're growing, our Hispanic culture is growing a lot, so there's more people just like us in the classroom, but maybe back then in the 90s, early 2000s, there weren't.
Definitely were not. I was in high school in like the 2010s, and I have to say, definitely not. I feel like now there's more conversation about cultural diversity, and so it's something that's more celebrated, which I really love that for other Latin Americans that are growing up,
awesome.
And going to school. But
I will also say, coming from a different place, you have a different perspective on everything. So a lot of the times when we were engaging in conversations that were a little bit controversial, our culture was brought up kind of as an excuse almost as to why we felt the way that we did. It was a source of shame, at least for me, to have conversations like that and have a different opinion and have it be minimized to this is because of where you're from and, the assumptions that came from that.
Yeah.
And people don't understand either, like your experience as a Latin American. Like, Americans, they grow up differently. Their dynamic at home is different. So when I was in high school and I'd be like, oh no, I can't do that because I have to ask my mom, or
we would work during the summer with my mom. She's a housekeeper, and we would go.
While you were in high school?
While we were
in high school, middle school.
Okay.
We always went to work with her. It wasn't like a child labor thing, which people tried to make it out to be. It was more like
I need to help my mom, right?
I need to help my mom.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so we would all go. I mean, it wasn't just me and Andrea. It was our brothers too.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the summers when people were really excited about being off of school and stuff, we were not.
We were not.
But it gives you a different perspective to life, right? I mean, and even have you been to Honduras?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So going back to Honduras, right, where your parents are from, I mean, at least when I would go to Colombia, where my mom is from, and kind of see the way that they were living at that time, and then coming back here and just realizing that some of the problems that my schoolmates were having were really not serious problems, right? And you kind of put things into perspective. How did that assimilate to you growing up?
Just even with going to, help my mom out in the summers or whatever. Now that I'm older, I hated it when I was a kid, but now that I'm older, first of all, she taught me the value of a dollar, that it wasn't free.
Right.
All the things that we had, the house, the bills that she would pay, I mean, that was born out of her hard work. And now that I'm older, I'm grateful for that because I never took anything for granted when I was a kid because of her example.
Going back to Honduras and just seeing that the way that they live, I mean, we went, not even 6 months ago, and our aunt actually, a long time ago, she got kidnapped because my uncle's sort of wealthy over there, so they were trying to get his daughter, and they made a mistake, and they kidnapped her for 11 days. So over there, they have bodyguards all the time, they're not allowed to go out at night really, and it's
there
very
are
dangerous.
Armed weapons in storefronts, people holding armed military grade weapons.
So a lot of people take it for granted, right? Take the security that we have here and the comfort and just the way that we live here for granted compared to just outside of the borders. What do you tell the kids or young adults that are Hispanic and don't want to speak Spanish? What do you say to them?
I understand it. I understand where they're coming from. I understand that they may not think it's important right now. But I feel like, one, it's part of my identity, and it really helps me hold on to my culture, and for me that is so important. I feel like it's going to be so important for me to teach my kids that.
Especially living here.
Especially living here. But I would say do it. I mean, you're not going to regret it. When you're an adult and you're looking back on this experience as a child and you're you're agonizing now about having to learn it and having to, you know, put yourself out there to like speak it. And I know it's uncomfortable when people make fun of you when you say words wrong. It happened to me, still happens to me sometimes. Like, my vernacular isn't perfect, but now that I'm an adult and I'm a nurse and I'm a professional, I use it so much, and I use it to my advantage, and I feel like it's something that makes me so distinct in like the best way possible.
You help a lot more people with it, right? I mean, I similar to me. I can help people in English, help people in Spanish or
exactly.
Spanglish, whichever language that they want to speak. And I also feel the same way. You know, when you're younger, you kind of feel like it's not an advantage, you know, maybe a burden, right? But then when you grow up, you figure that it is an advantage. And even for me, as in business, it's a competitive advantage. And for you and in nursing, it helps you help more people, right? So I think that's great. Tell me about your nursing profession and career. I mean, I think it's so cool that you're both nurses and you're both doing great things for our community here in our local area. And you know, there's probably young adults watching us, either middle school or high school, that don't know what they want to do in the future, right? I think I was sharing with you just earlier that growing up, I remember I knew I had to go to school. I knew I had to graduate high school for sure, right?
Yeah.
And then my parents would say, hey, you got to go to college and, you know, become a lawyer or a doctor or something professional. But, you know, you maybe don't want to become a doctor. You maybe don't want to become a lawyer. You really don't know what you want to do, and less know how to get it done, right? You don't really know which colleges to look for or where to go or even where to seek the help.
Yeah.
So how did you get there? And what would you tell like a young Hispanic or even just a young person in general, you know, like how to get there?
We were there. Like, we have been there. We went through it, and you will get through it. I promise. There are people and places that you can go to kind of help you figure out what to do, because we had no idea. We're first generation everything, so we were the first people in our immediate family to go to college. My mom had no idea how to help us with that. I remember distinctly one summer we came back from break and everyone had turned in their
early
essays, applications, and we had no idea that we even had to do
They
that.
probably went to visit the schools, right?
Yeah.
Same happened with me. Like the kids would, I went to Yale, I went to Harvard to check it out, you know, and I went to Columbia, and I'm like, well, I didn't go anywhere. I don't know where I'm gonna go.
Yeah, and then you feel already so behind because you didn't do all those things that these kids are already doing because their parents already knew kind of what to do. And then at the same time, like for us, there was like a big financial aspect of it. My mom was a single parent at the time. Getting us through college was gonna be a very like individual thing. We had to figure it out. I remember that we were going to counselors to ask them for help on our college applications, and then we found out how much tuition was, and we were like, we can't do that to our mom. Like, we can't even possibly think about asking her for this much money, let alone for one of us, but for the both of us. So we ended up applying for FAFSA, and because we didn't know anything about FAFSA, we thought we were denied. So we took a year off. We took a year off and we were working. This is when we had those odd jobs we were talking about, right?
And those jobs were just to fund
our college. We knew we were going to go to a community college. And I had aspirations. I always wanted to do something medical, and she always wanted to do something semi-medical too. At first I was going to be a surgeon. That was my like whole thing. Mm-hmm. And then I saw how much it was and how much schooling it took, and I was like, I need to, I can't afford that. And two, I need to start working as soon as possible to help my mom. Turns out when we entered Wake Tech, the counselors there had told us that we'd been approved for FAFSA all along. So we actually already had the funds to go to school, and we had no idea because we didn't know about the process. Okay. Once we realized that we had the grants to go to school, we like started right away. I mean, we got right into it. At our first try, we applied to nursing school and we both got in.
Okay.
So that was really exciting because Wake Tech is a very competitive nursing program. Most people have to apply at least twice before they get.
Where do they need to go? Just the one? Which campus would they have to go to?
We went to the campus off
Perry
Health Sciences, but remember we started at Lewisburg, and that's where they told us.
We started at Northern Campus for prerequisites.
Okay.
And we didn't actually have to go anywhere different until we got into the nursing program. Once that happened, we had to go to the Perry Health Science campus. It was the only place that did nursing courses. So that was exciting. But I remember them telling us, like, when we applied, that the chances of us getting in together at the same time were slim to none. And then if we did end up getting in together, the chances of us continuing and completing the program at the same time were slim.
That usually one person fails.
And to just be expecting that.
Right, and so thank God that never happened to either of us. We did end up both got in, and we both finished our degree at the same time. Back to your original question, I would just tell people, do everything that you can. I mean, do everything that you can. Exhaust all of your resources. There's not a stone that I feel like I left unturned trying to seek my education. And I know that Latin parents, especially if they immigrate over here, they want a better life for their kids. And there's that burden that you bear from the moment that you are like, here is like, my parents did all of this for me. I have to get my education. I have to, do something, make something of myself to make this sacrifice be worth it for my parents.
Yeah, I mean, I think every immigrant that comes here for a better life, right? They come here to succeed, for that American dream, right? And then having kids and having us, as first generation here is part of that goal. And it is a responsibility that we bear from birth, right? So hopefully whoever's watching this video would take it seriously the way that you girls have taken it. And congratulations. I mean, you told me that you were working in the hospital for 4 years. So that means you started working right before COVID. Yeah. And you worked through COVID. So that must have been a tough experience that has developed you to be what you are right now, right? So can you tell us a little bit about that? And well, first of all, I think we all appreciate, the work that you and all of your co-workers in the nursing industry have done in the medical field. But how was that, and then I guess if you could tell us, being Latina's nurse or in the medical field, nursing field, how do you feel, just being part of that?
Well, that was a mess. I mean, we worked, like you said, before COVID happened, so we saw like all of the changes. And some people, they started during COVID, and so they've never known anything different. But for us, it was like the face masks were a problem. People didn't want to wear them originally, so that was a whole struggle. Then when we had shortages, people were stealing the masks from the isolation carts, so we had to lock them.
Wow.
PPE, we were
reusing.
Yeah, reuse, right? Yeah, we had our N95s that we had to keep in little bags with our names in them and then put them in our lockers, and that's what we would use every time, which is not
ideal.
No. But that was hard. And then they told us originally, because we work on a cardiovascular unit and it's post-surgical, that we weren't going to get COVID patients because the risk that we had for those patients after surgery, like putting them with COVID patients on the same unit, that would increase the risk of infection and complications and stuff like that. So when we actually started seeing them on our floor, that was kind of a shock. At one point, almost half of our floor was COVID. And I mean, that in and of itself is really difficult because you try so hard to do everything all at once so that you can minimize the amount of exposure, not only to yourself, but to your other patients. Because if you're not careful, you're carrying that infection to other rooms, So first of all, those patients, I felt the worst for them, because at that time you weren't allowed to have family. And then you were in a room and you were confined to that room for however long you were in the hospital. And then imagine them telling you that they don't think that you're gonna make it. Yeah. And then you're FaceTiming your family to say goodbye. Like, that was heartbreaking. And we didn't see a lot of it, but when we did, it was terrible. I mean, I felt bad for them. And then just for regular patients, not having family, not having support there, then they relied more on us, on nurses, to kind of be that support for them.
And nurses were primarily responsible for being like that liaison between the outside and the inside, like where they were and where we were, right? Where dietary got to like put the trays outside of the room, nurses were responsible for getting them to the patients. Doctors would do telehealth.
So more at risk.
Right. So the nurses were the most at risk. Nurses and I feel like respiratory therapists and nursing assistants. We were the ones who were constantly in the room, because you can't do our job, you can't do respiratory therapist job without physically being in there. There's that component. You have to expose yourself. So it did make life very difficult.
What about our Latino Hispanic patients, and you being bilingual, how were you able to help them then, and I guess now in your profession, being too professional?
I feel like the only way that you can help Latin patients in general is to be kind of there as their support, like when they don't understand things, right? Yeah. Our floor did a really good job of sort of putting nurses that were Spanish speaking with patients that were only Spanish speaking, so that we could bridge the gap a little bit. But it also does place a bit more of a burden on your bilingual nurses, because a lot of the times, if the patients know that you are the only one that speaks Spanish, even if I have a nursing assistant, they're going to wait to ask me for everything, right? They want the water, they want the bathroom, they want the answers to all the questions at the same time that I'm in the room, because they know I'm the only person that can speak that language. And while that is, I was glad to be a support for them, it was hard when I had 3 other patients who needed me as well to also take on my job and somebody else's job, because the patients, don't understand. That's why they encourage us to use interpreters so much in the hospital. But the reality is you don't get the same kind of interaction or support from an interpreter that you do from a nurse that understands. If you can be there and you can help these patients, that experience is invaluable to patients. The relief that you see on their faces when you understand what they're saying is like nothing else. Everything that I did has helped me become who I am now. I know the value of hard work, and I value my career more and what I do for my patients more, because I know how hard it was to get to that end goal.
So let's talk a little bit about that. What nursing has done for you. You both just bought a home, so congratulations.
Thank you.
And the cool thing that I like, and what really caught my attention when Omar brought up, your case to me, was that aside from being twins and young, Gen Z professional nurses, but wanting to buy in the same community. You're both basically neighbors.
Right. Yes.
Bought, a similar floor plan, same price, same loan. Just everything is the same, but congratulations on that. How has that helped you lead into becoming homeowners? And, what are your goals for the future, and how do you see your career helping you accomplish those goals?
Nursing has given us so much. Aside from just like rewarding work, financial stability. I remember growing up and not knowing if I was going to eat sometimes, as sad as it is a reality, so now knowing that I will always have a job, because there's always going to be sick people in need, and knowing that, I can help them in any way, that's honestly truly satisfying, and it makes it so much easier to say, I did this because of that, But nursing in general has just been a blessing to both of us. I don't think we knew at the time. Andrea knew she was going to be medical. And even I, towards the end of my high school experience, knew that I wanted to do something similar to that. I couldn't have ever imagined what it would have given me.
We wanted a stable job and something that, would pay the bills, obviously. And we like helping people, so nursing felt like a logical choice. But now that we are nurses, like she said, it has given us so much more than we could ever put into words.
How did you prepare to become homeowners, right? So I guess the first step was to become employed.
Definitely have a job.
to have a job, right? Have a good paying job, number one, right? That helps you save. But how did you prepare, and how was your process or experience like to now get into your home?
So we were very lucky that we had family members who were able to help us financially. Like my mom, in some way, she did gift us some money for us to even consider buying a home. And then, what we didn't have, we pulled.
Yeah.
From our savings.
And saved.
And we saved a lot. So the first thing I would say is start saving.
Start saving and be employed.
Right, and be employed. Right, obviously.
How did you pick this community? How did you pick the home? What type of research can somebody out there that's watching this, do? Did you go on YouTube or? So
the first thing we did is we found a realtor that we really liked and that we really trusted. And it is okay to shop around for realtors. Don't let anybody make you feel like you have to stick with them because you started talking to them. That is not the case. You have to find somebody who's going to advocate for you. One.
Cool.
And then when we started looking, we said, what do we want our monthly to look like? What is this sustainable, our payment, right? Yep. And that's going to be the most important thing for many homeowners.
So you had a budget, which is key, because a lot of people don't do a budget, right? They don't know how much they make or how much to spend. So you were prepared. You knew about a budget.
And we got approved for more than what we ended up spending on this house. And that, I'm only saying that because it's important that people who are listening out there know the maximum does not equal like, hey, I can, even if I get approved for $425,000, that doesn't mean I can afford $425,000, right?
Mm-hmm. Set a budget, stick to it. We started looking in Raleigh. We've always lived in Raleigh. That's where we wanted to be. And then I knew what I wanted. I knew my must-haves for a home, and so did she. Mm-hmm. And we started looking in Raleigh, and we just were not meeting the criteria from the list, like the must-haves. And they weren't hard must-haves. They were just things that the market wasn't able to give us with our budget.
At the price, yeah.
Right. So we started looking a little further out. We explored in Fuquay. We went to Angier. I mean, we looked all over the place. We ended up deciding on Zebulon because we wanted to be in Clayton, if not Raleigh.
Okay.
And this was close to Clayton. It's like right on the border of Clayton and Zebulon. We also, so originally the plan wasn't to get the same home in the same neighborhood.
At the same time.
At the same time. But if we were going to move out further, we knew that we wanted to have each other kind of like as a support system. Because if you're all out here by yourself and that's all you have, that's scary. Yeah. Especially for somebody like me who's living alone. So we then decided, okay, if we're going to actually seriously consider Zebulon or Clayton, then we need to consider living in the same neighborhood or at least in the same general area. And of course, then we found this neighborhood. Place. Mm-hmm.
And we knew we wanted new construction too. So we found this place. This is a funny story, but this neighborhood, when it was originally being built, we went to see the very first houses, and there were 2. And we were like, great, like we love it, but we're gonna still keep kind of looking around. And when I came back to this neighborhood and I finally was like, yes, I want to put an offer on that house, my realtor was like, there's only one. They already sold the other one. And I was like, well then no. And I was, devastated. You guys have no idea. I was like crying. I was so upset.
The home was available, but you said no because there wasn't one for your sister.
Exactly. And because we were buying together, it made our offer stronger. When we came into this neighborhood or whatever, and then they were like, nope, we don't have 2. I was like, well, then we can't, because I can't risk not having another one. So I was looking that weekend with a coworker. She was scrolling through her list, and she was showing me the homes that she was considering buying, and this house popped up. And I was like, oh, my coworker's name is Kaylee. I was like, Kaylee, I know that house. My realtor already said it's sold. Like, don't even worry about it. Don't even bother looking at it. She was like, Andrew, what are you talking about? This just came out today. And I was like, what are you saying? She wasn't seriously considering Zebulon. She wanted to be more Wake Forest area. So I was like, are you okay if I go look at it? Came to look at it. There was this house and then that house over there. And we fell in love. We were like, yes, this. And it had everything that I wanted. So I was like, I am going to put an offer in on this house.
Cool. So you were open to buying outside of the area that you initially started looking at, and it has been a tough market for a lot of people. Prices have gone up, interest rates have gone up, so affordability in Raleigh, Durham, Cary, Apex, Morrisville has been really tight for a lot of people. So congratulations on the purchase of the home. Again, I think that you're both testimony of success, a success story for many, especially in our culture. I hope that whoever's watching this video has enjoyed it. Andrea, Celeste, thank you so much for your time. And just some parting words that you have for example, my daughter. Come here, Sadie. So I have my daughter here, Sadie, who's helping me out today. She's behind the scenes. So any parting words to a young Latina, young Hispanic, or non-Hispanic generation that's growing up in this changing world, what parting words do you have for them?
At the risk of sounding cliche, don't give up. It is so easy because there's so many obstacles sometimes to get to your end goal, but don't give up. Exhaust every resource that you can, really, and advocate for yourself. It's going to be hard, but it's also going to be worth it when you reach that goal.
Yep.
Embrace your culture.
Yes, embrace your culture, please. There's nothing more beautiful than having this amazing culture to really back up and support you. It's one of the things that I'm the most proud of now that I'm an adult, is that I'm Hispanic and that I'm able to say that and really celebrate that about myself. And I feel like
the music's better, right?
And the music's better. Duh. The music's so much better. But yes, don't give up. keep working hard and it'll pay off eventually. Like she said, it's hard, but at the end it is always worth it. It's always worth it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, guys, see you in the next video. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Celeste. Cool.